attending Lawrence High School. Next is Fritz Wisser from Germany, attending Wellsville High School. We have Matis Trauer from from Germany, attending Wellsville High School. Sophie Simon from Germany, attending Baldwin City High School. Yana Kuznetov from Moldova, attending Lawrence High School. And then Prey Hyder from Baldwin High School from Pakistan. So members, please join me in recognizing these students and welcoming them to campus. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I would ask that my work be spread across the journal. Thank you.
Without objection, so ordered. Motions of the previous day, the clerk will read.
Resolution number 6043 by Representative Clays, a resolution urging the Federal Aviation Administration to accept Kansas's application for the Unmanned Aerial Systems Integration Pilot Program.
On a motion to adopt House Resolution 6043, the Speaker recognizes Representative Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Before us today is House Resolution 6043, a resolution supporting the Kansas Department of Transportation application for the FAA Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Pilot Program. Kansas was the first state in the nation to appoint a director of unmanned aircraft systems and the first to have an operational unmanned traffic management system in place for state agencies, 138 airports, and 37 higher education institutions. Our UAS Joint Task Force is made up of 17 state agencies, universities, and associations working together to deliver economic development using safe UAS operational practices. We are leading the way in this emerging industry, and there will be no better way to punctuate our position in unmanned aircraft systems than to win selection as a state capable of integrating unmanned aircraft systems into the national airspace. Here in Kansas, we are the air capital of the world, not just because of our factories, but because of the expertise of our people. Letters of support have been sent from partners from the entire federal delegation, the Office of the Governor, the Kansas Senate, our higher education institutions, and our private partners. There are too many to list, but some examples include Black & Veatch, Westar Energy, the Kansas Farm Bureau, Garmin, AirMap, AT&T, Microsoft, and dozens of others. Your vote today will add the Kansas House of Representatives to the list of supporters of the Kansas application for the FAA Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Pilot Program. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move adoption of House Resolution 6043.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes.
Mr. Speaker, I would like my words read across the journal.
Without objection, so ordered. Senate Bill 283 appears on the consent calendar for the first day. Is there objection? Seeing none, will remain there for the second day. House Bill 2436 appears on the consent calendar for the second day. Is there objection? Seeing none, it will remain for the third day. Majority Leader Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. The motion passes. For the purposes of chairing the Committee of the Whole, the Speaker appoints Representative Garber.
Good morning, body. We have three bills to debate today. First bill will be House Bill 2455. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2455, the chair recognizes Representative from Sedgwick, Representative Delphin.
is one committee amendment to HB 2455. Therefore, I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. You may proceed.
2455 is the Kansas Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee, and it's relating to cost avoidance due to reductions in youth out-of-home placements. Essentially, this is a technical fix. It's clarifying one of the statutory duties of the Kansas Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee to require the committee to monitor rather than calculate any state expenditures that have been avoided by the reductions of the number of youth placed in out-of-home placements. There is a corresponding requirement that a summary of such averted costs also be included in the Juvenile Oversight Committee's annual report, and that would change it from calculated by the committee to determined. The House Committee amended the bill to align the annual reporting requirement with change in terminology. It can be found on page 3, line 40 of the bill. There were, for proponents, we had the Kansas Department of Corrections introduce the bill, and having received testimony from the chairperson of the Juvenile Oversight Committee requesting the change so that the agencies, rather than the Juvenile Oversight Committee itself, could make the required calculations. So the calculations aren't really going away, they're just being done by the agencies themselves. There were no opponents, and the fiscal note was neutral on it. So I stand for questions.
Does anyone desire to speak to the bill? Chair recognizes Representative Heiberger of Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was some question in the committee as to whether this bill was even necessary. It came to us from the Joint Committee on Juvenile Justice Oversight created by SB 367 last year. They didn't feel like they had the resources to do the calculations that the statute requires them. That committee fashion calculations actually being done by the Department of Corrections. This bill just cleans up the language so that make sure the committee is monitoring and the corrections calculations are done by the Department of Corrections. It's pretty straightforward bill. I appreciate your support.
Anyone else desire to speak to HB 2455? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, it just helps better align the duties of the agencies versus the Oversight Committee. So with that, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it report HB 2455 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Dumford to report HB 2455 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Next item will be House Bill 2244. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2244, excuse me, 2444. Sorry, 2444. Representative Trimmer, Representative Talley. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and there were no committee amendments. HB 2444 is being brought to the floor because in 2007, because the federal government had put economic sanctions on the Sudan, Capers was barred from investing in the Sudan. We had a state law which allowed for that, created tracking and indemnification of employees. That was tied to the federal sanctions. Now that the sanctions have been removed from the Sudan, then this bill no longer exists, but the Capers group needed to get rid of the policy of tracking, reporting, and indemnification because there's no need for tracking, there's no need for reporting, and there's no need for indemnification. And that's basically what the bill does. There's just no purpose now for having capers do that because the sanctions have been lifted. It would also be very difficult for capers to try to continue their policy of non-investing because now that the sanctions have been lifted, it would be very, very hard to track those investments because some companies have subsidiaries that invest, and it would be very difficult to continue just a state policy in that respect. So the committee and the capers group has asked that we eliminate this really unnecessary statute. Thank you. Stand for questions.
Does anyone desire to speak to this bill? Chair recognizes Representative Finney of Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything that the previous speaker said about the bill. This bill was recommended by capers and the Joint Committee on Pensions, and they said it's basically a technical bill that's clarifying changes, and they highly recommend favorable changes to this bill. And I also support this bill, and I ask for your support as well. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Kelly of Montgomery to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The representative did an excellent job of going through the reasons for this change and the change you said at the federal level that brought it about. So I support this bill, and it will bring us back into having this out of creating confusion in the capers investment policy.
Anyone else desire to speak to House Bill 2444? If there's no further discussion, Representative Krimmer, you may call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises to report, it reports House Bill 2444 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Krimmer to report House Bill 2444 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Next item of business is House Bill 2456. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2456, Chair recognizes Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. You may continue.
Right, 2456, tolling case length limits for certain juvenile offenders. What the bill does, as amended, would amend the statute governing probation term limits and overall case length limits in the Kansas Revised Juvenile Justice Code to clarify that when such limits are tolled due to the offender absconding from supervision, the limit shall not begin to run again until the offender is located and brought back to the jurisdiction. The bill would also clarify that if juvenile fails to appear with dispositional hearing, such limit shall not apply until the juvenile is brought before the court for disposition. There was only one committee amendment to move on the, or to clarify the definition, and there were no opponents. The only controversial thing would seem to be the word tolling, which I've been hit up for a few times. Tolling just means basically hitting the pause button while we try to locate the juvenile. And fiscal note, there was no fiscal note, although there is some idea that there would be additional work for court services officers. There's no way to quantify that. So I'll stand for questions.
Speak to the bill. Chair recognizes Representative Hiberger of Douglas.
I'd like to thank the previous representative for clarifying the meaning of the word tolling. That came up in our caucus also, and so I don't have to do that. They did a fine job describing the bill. The issue here is that the juvenile case limit now, the actual time of juvenile case to proceed is fairly limited as a result of the SB 367 we passed 2 years ago. And so without this tolling provision, juvenile Wisconsins could wait out a great deal of their case limit. So this just pauses that time while the juvenile is not in custody or subscribed. And so I think it's a good amendment and encourage you to support it. Good bill.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Smith, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rise reports, the reports House Bill 2456 favorably for passage.
Heard the motion by Representative Smith to report House Bill 2456 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Body, this concludes general orders. So recognize the Majority Leader Heinemann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to rise and report.
Heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Clerk, will you continue the whole report?
Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Whole recommends House Bill 2444 be passed, House Bills 2455 and 2456 be passed as amended.
On motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole report, Representative Garber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pro Tem, I move the adoption of the committee report.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. Reports of standing committees, Clerk will read.
Committee on Education recommends House Bill 2541 be passed. Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice recommends House Bill 2608 be passed because the committee of the opinion that it's now controversial nature be placed on the consent calendar. Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice recommends House Bill 2566 be passed. Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice recommends House Bill 2534 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Health and Human Services recommends House Bill 2472 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Committee on Health and Human Services recommends House Bill 2501 be passed. Committee on Agriculture recommends House Bill 2558 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion the bill is of non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar.
Announcing change of reference, House Bill 2572 is withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development, referred to the Committee on Taxation. Announcing change of reference, House Bill 2728 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2734 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2550 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2548 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2724 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice. House Bill 2681 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2625 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice. House Bill 2699 is withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 2644 is withdrawn from the Committee on Higher Education Budget and referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Announcements. Representative Jim Warren will replace Representative Calvino Wynn on the K-12 Education Budget Committee and on the House Education Committee Tuesday, February 13th only. Representative Stan Brownfelter will replace Representative John Carmichael on the House Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee, Tuesday, February 13th only. Representative Stan Brownfelter will replace Representative Brandon Whipple on the Higher Education Budget Committee, Tuesday, February 13th only. Further announcements. Representative Sloan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Water and Environment Committee will reconvene to finish our deliberations on those two bills we heard this morning upon adjournment and our normal room. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Body, I'd like to draw your attention to the East Gallery where former State Representative Bill Otto is resting rather relaxed. Representative Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two announcements today. The first one is my weekly announcement concerning the Rural Caucus. It will meet for lunch tomorrow, 159 South, immediately following the session. The judicial branch will present to us their judicial branch budget. The host will be Kearney and Associates, and we will be lunching on barbecue. Be there. My second announcement has to do with a more special day here at the Capitol tomorrow. It is Kansas Undergraduate Research Day here at the Capitol, which will take place from 11:30 to 1 p.m. First floor rotunda. Undergraduate students will join their peers from other border regions, public four-year universities, to present their research in poster-board format to legislators and other members of state government. The purpose of the event is to demonstrate the unique opportunities undergraduate students have to participate with faculty members in research at border regions universities. So please stop by, support the undergrads, and recognize their work. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, just a general reminder, tomorrow is the Congressional Bible study in the morning, be in room 142 South, going over Romans chapter 5. So we welcome you. You haven't been 7 o'clock.
Representative Curtis.
Thank you. The Wyandotte Leavenworth County delegations will be meeting today for lunch in room 152 South. Thank you so much.
Representative Alcott.
Thank you. Shawnee County delegation will meet at noon today in room 218. Speaker will be Mike Kege, the Shawnee County District Attorney. Lunch will be provided.
Representative Whipple.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Democratic Caucus, we will have agenda tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. for agenda. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker.
Further announcements. Seeing none, Majority Leader Hyman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans, there will not be caucus in the morning, but we will have calendar review at 8:30 a.m. in the old Supreme Court room. Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Wednesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, at 11 a.m.
You heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same. Motion passes. We are adjourned.